Allegiance for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the Reverend Delegate from Baltimore County.
Good morning, colleagues. Precious Heavenly Father, I love you today, and I thank you again for your goodness and your grace. You've been called Wonderful, Counselor, Prince of Peace, Mighty God. But Father, today as I lift up the Maryland General Assembly into your holy presence, Father, there's been a theme this year of wisdom and you surrounding us with your love and guidance. But Father, I'm asking you to pour it out today amongst us all, Heavenly Father. We need your wisdom more than ever. We need your love more than ever. We need your love and guidance more than ever, Heavenly Father. Be with every leader of this General Assembly, from our governor to the janitor. Father, I love you today and thank you for my colleagues. Bless them today. And everybody says, amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will call the roll. There being 115 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March 13, 2022.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers. Report of the Committee on Appropriations. Recognizing the Chairman of Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Request permission to take HGO off the floor to the Old House Chamber for a few minutes.
Permission granted. Will
Thank you.
Health and Government Operations Committee, please go to the Old House Chamber.
Madam Speaker.
Chairman of Appropriations. Can you exit out, please, quietly?
Madam Speaker,
Recognizing the Chair of the Committee.
thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To you and to the members of the House of Delegates, the House Appropriations Committee has completed its review of the state budget for fiscal 2022.
Can you hold
Yep,
on 1 second? We got
2023.
Can
Is
you
that
hold
better?
1 second, please? The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 290, Budget Bill Fiscal Year 2023. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Very good.
Recognizing the chairwoman of the committee.
Today we report Senate Bill 290, the budget bill, a document summarizing committee actions on the budget, and it's available to you on your floor system. Madam Speaker, I would first like to thank the members of the Appropriations Committee. I especially want to recognize the leadership provided by our Vice Chair, Delegate Chang, and our subcommittee chairs and oversight committee chairs, Delegates Barnes, Bridges, Corman, Proctor, Resnick, and Young. All members of the committee worked hard this session, asking great questions and really digging into the issues to deliver this budget to you today. I would also like to thank each of our committee councils, Ken Weaver, June Chung, and our senior committee counsel, who is invaluable to all of us, Michelle Lambert, as well as the budget staff and our Office of Policy and Analysis for the support that they have provided to the committee this session. They were all instrumental to the successful work of the committee, and we would not have been able to complete our work without them. Lastly, I would like to take a moment to thank my staff. Staff committee, Cherie Warheim, Dana Phillips, Jeannie Ferretti, and Helen Wilson. And I might add, Madam Speaker, that Helen Wilson has been with the Appropriations Committee now for 22 sessions. That's quite a record. Although the circumstances under which we consider the budget is different each year, and especially in the last 2 years, it's also always our goal to pass a budget that meets the needs of Marylanders while maintaining responsible fiscal position for the state. I am proud to say that the budget before us achieves both of these goals. The budget provides historic levels of funding to help each county of this state. It supports Marylanders most in need as we lift ourselves out of the pandemic. And it invests in individuals and businesses who have sacrificed the most during the pandemic. We do all of this by increasing the state's commitment to education through $450 million in newly allocated funds to the public schools to continue the implementation of the blueprint for Maryland's future, and increasing aid to our higher education institutions by 20%. Included in this budget is $832 million for employee compensation, enhancements, and to help attract and retain our state workforce. Making significant investments in our capital infrastructure through the use of $1.6 billion in general fund pay-go and plans to free up another $700 million of GO bond capacity in the capital budget. Committing funds to protect our communities through $47 million in enhanced police and targeted aid to the communities that need it the most, and $43 million earmarked for victim service providers and other innovative public safety programs. Continuing to support over 1.5 million individuals with expanded Medicaid coverage and providing most health care providers in the state with an 8% increase in their rates. The budget before you today does all of these things and maintains a $2.1 billion in the rainy day fund, and it leaves $1.2 billion in general fund balance. Preserving these historic levels of saving ensures that our state's well-positioned to continue responding to rising costs and future uncertainties. The budget before you is fiscally prudent and socially responsible. But, Madam Speaker, our work on the budget is not finished. The spending plan before you today includes $1.4 billion in earmarked funds to support our state priorities. It also assumes $350 million in tax relief. $800 million will be set aside, 800 more will be set aside for the blueprint, and $30 million will be set aside for the development of rental housing. For these placeholders, the Appropriations Committee and the body are committed to finding the appropriate balance between tax relief and investment in our shared priorities for all Marylanders. I look forward to presenting the budget as amended by the committee to you on Wednesday. Let me now turn to the materials that have been made available to you through the floor system. First, the report of the House Appropriations Committee explains each recommended amendment. Amendments are numbered in the report and the committee reprint of the bill. The report includes reductions, bill language, and committee narrative listed in the budget code sequence. Keep in mind that committee narrative does not amend the bill and is not subject to floor action. Second, the committee reprint of the budget bill reflects the committee's amendments to the bill. Amendments in the budget are numbered and correspond to the explanations in the committee report. When you review these documents, remember that this year the House is considering the budget as passed by the Senate. House action that differs from that of the Senate is set out in italics in the committee report and the committee reprint of the bill. Senate action, which the committee did not agree with, is struck through. Other actions reflected in the reprint and the report are Senate actions that our committee also adopted. Keep this in mind that amendments are to be drawn to the committee reprint. If you as a member want to request an amendment, the amendment office staff will be able to help you. And that we would ask that amendments be given to the Appropriations Committee and to the budget bill. The committee would like to review these amendments in advance. All the materials included in the analysis of the Maryland executive budget prepared by the Department of Legislative Services is available to you on the floor system and to the public on the General Assembly's website. The analysis described the significant budget changes in each agency and provide an overview as the budget is as submitted. Madam Speaker, I move that Senate Bill 290 and the associated amendments be special ordered until Wednesday, March 23rd at an appropriate time.
Question for the House is to special order Senate Bill 290 to the appropriate time on Wednesday. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Bill has been special ordered to Wednesday, March 23rd. Report of the Committee on Appropriations. Report number 13. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1336, Greater Baltimore Transit Governance and Funding Commission. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendments 1 and 2 change the composition and staffing of the commission. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 17. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 918, Montgomery County Landlord and Tenant Access to Cable Television Systems and Equipment. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Among other things, this bill prohibits certain residential landlords in Montgomery County from preventing a cable television company from assessing dwelling unit for the purpose of constructing, installing, or servicing cable television systems equipment if a tenant has requested cable television systems or discriminating in a rental or other charges based on cable television systems. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 1 provides that an action may be brought in a court of competent jurisdiction as opposed to district court of the county. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 936, Blue Ribbon Community Solar Land Use Commission. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So
the
ordered.
amendments add sponsors and a member to the Blue Ribbon Community Solar Land Use Commission from the Department of Planning. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 19. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 601, Chesapeake Bay and Coastal Sport Fishing License and Recreational Fishing Pilot Program and Task Force. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Of the House Bill 601 establishes the Chesapeake Bay and Coastal Sport Fishing License Pilot Program in DNR and a task force on recreational fishing data collection and licensing. The committee amendment was that limit the pilot program to boat licenses. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or
Madam Speaker,
to its title?
I just have a quick question for the floor leader, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Montgomery.
How are you?
Good morning.
All right, thank you.
Are there really any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 869, Wetlands and Waterways Program Authorizations for Ecological Restoration Projects. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, the bill requires MDE's Wetlands and Waterways Program Division to study and make recommendations on specified items relating to permitting for ecological restoration projects. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill and requires MDE to conduct the study. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1097, Task Force on Property Appraisal and Valuation Equity. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Madam.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, the bill establishes a task force on property appraisal and evaluation equity to be staffed by the Department of Housing and Community Development. The task force must report the findings and recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly by October 1st, 31, 2023. The bill takes effect June 1st, 2022, and terminates on June 30th, 2024. The amendments, Madam Speaker, alters the membership of the task force. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have a couple of questions about this bill, if you don't mind.
Floor leader.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Feels like we didn't even leave. This is House Bill 1097, Task Force on Property Appraisal and Valuation Equity. What are we trying to do with valuation?
What are we trying to do with evaluation? As I'm sure you are aware, there are many methods of evaluation of appraisals. There are many methods of evaluating appraisals. What we're attempting to do with this bill is to establish some circumstances on how the best way to look at the evaluation in terms of getting property assessed values matched with some of the circumstances in different jurisdictions.
So the word equity, is that because you want all properties, not you, but the bill is trying to make all properties worth the same?
To make all property what now?
Worth the same?
I still can't go ahead.
Is the purpose of the bill to make all properties when they're valued by an appraiser, be valued exactly the same?
Yes. The purpose of the bill is to be certain that the equity of the property is established property. There are cases all across the state and across the nation where appraisals are coming in less than what it costs to build the properties.
So you said that the purpose of the bill is to make all properties worth the same, and you said yes. I just want to make sure that you want to answer that way, because that would by definition mean that we are now living in a Marxist state.
I misunderstood your question. I could barely hear you through the mask. I misunderstood your question. We're not trying to make the properties evaluation the same all across the state. No, we're trying to make them worth their value.
So don't we do that already, though, with appraisals? I mean, appraisals have...
Not necessarily. I'm sorry, I finished your question.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, it's been proven all across the United States, and particularly in Maryland, where the appraisal process has some glitches in it. And so misevaluations in the appraisal process is what this bill is trying to fix. Misevaluations is part of the language in the bill.
So then why use the word equity? Because that implies that the appraisal should always be the same in terms of the valuation across the board, no matter what the property looks like or is.
There's two terms that you're crossing together: equity and valuation. Okay?
Well, that's my argument. My argument is you have both terms in the bill, and by definition, an appraisal is about evaluation. An appraisal is not about equity. So those are oxymorons. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. It just seems that it's a very confusing bill for that reason. That's why I was just trying to get clarity on the intent of the bill, because when you say property appraisal and valuation equity, and you're saying that you're trying to get the property appraisal right, the word equity sounds like you're trying to get the properties to value exactly the same.
No, the purpose of the bill is, again, to make the appraisal valuation proper based upon the applications of, for example, let me give you an example. I'll make it real easy for you. You buy a house. The nails cost X. The materials cost X, Y. You put those together, that's what the property should cost. There are cases across the United States where it is not working out that way.
Thank you. I'm not really sure I understand the bill, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Madam Speaker.
Who called? General Lady.
Thank you. Floor Leader, can I ask a question?
Yes, indeed.
So for clarity, would the purpose of this task force be to essentially make sure that people are getting fair appraisals based on the average property values, let's say in their neighborhood, regardless of, any type of demographic, race, income, all of that?
That is correct.
So, for example, I refinanced my home in Northern Calvert in 2020. I had one appraiser come in 1 week and give me an estimation for the value of my home, and I didn't believe that was fair in comparison to all the other homes on my street, which are similar in size and design, acreage, all of that. And so 2 weeks later, I had another appraiser come in who then gave my home a value that was $35,000 higher than the first estimate. So would this task force address those kinds of inequities?
That's exactly correct. That is exactly what the purpose of this task force is attempting to solve.
Thank you.
That's the problem.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just very quickly, you have 8 members of the general public. Walk me through what their qualifications will be in reviewing these type of, with their work on this task force, and what their qualifications.
The 8 members of the general public, 4 of them will be appointed by the Speaker of the House, 4 of them will be appointed by the President of the Senate.
Right.
There are no qualifications in the legislation for the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate to appoint them. What we want to have on this task force are citizens throughout the entire state of Maryland who may be helpful in making sure that those other persons on the task force may be able to put some input into perhaps some of the circumstances that they are experiencing with the purpose of the bill.
Right, and I agree, and I think that's an important point of view, but just for clarification, they won't have any type of background in underwriting processes or evaluation processes whatsoever. There'll be 8 people on a board of how many total?
If you look at page 2, it goes through the whole list.
Yeah.
There are quite a few of them. I did not
there's-
take the time to count all of them, but there is a whole list of those persons on the bill. What we did in an amendment was we eliminated 3 members. We eliminated 2 members from the House of Delegates, and we eliminated 1 member of the Senate.
Yeah, I'm looking at the reprint now. 2 from the banking industry, 1 from Mako, 1 from Maryland Builders. So it looks like about a dozen people, maybe 14 people, and 8 of them will just be average citizens. But just for clarification, they won't have any background in any underwriting procedures, any type of evaluation procedures whatsoever.
No,
as in current statute.
Those 8 persons are just from the general public. They don't necessarily have to have any expertise in the appraisal process, but they may have some experiences in the misevaluation of their neighborhoods or homes. So we wanted to have a cross-section of professionals in this task force as well as citizens, so that citizens can have some input in terms of how the task force winds up. I may also add that this particular language that's in this bill mirrors the language that is taking place right now with the Biden administration and Secretary Fudge in housing. They have recognized that this problem, as I indicated earlier, is a nationwide problem. And therefore, the language that's in this bill mirrors the evaluation process. I think the federal government calls it professional evaluation something. But this is mirroring the federal government's plan to look at the evaluation appraisal process throughout the United States.
In the committee's diligence, did they discuss why they would have 8 members out of, let's say, 14 that would have no background whatsoever, and or not outline anything in the bill as to why you would or would not select?
If you take a look at task force that we have throughout any task force we have in Maryland, most task forces we have in Maryland, always has a number of citizens to participate. And we always have citizens participate in task forces, specifically as I indicated, so that they can have an input to share with the task force members their experience. And that's all that this is doing.
I absolutely agree. I'm just worried about the disproportionate numbers as far as people that don't have any experience that will be making, setting forth policy. That's all.
I see the chair of the committee standing. I will yield to him for follow-up on your question.
Sure, with your permission, Madam Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
The committee is very interested in also hearing from consumers. One of the problems oftentimes is we tend to forget consumers. This is a task force that has a very large number of highly qualified experts, but my committee wants to have a decent input from consumers. And that's the reason for that.
That's exactly what the gentleman was saying. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Hold on one second. We'll get back to the chairwoman of Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like the Appropriations Committee to meet me in the old House office chambers for 2 quick votes.
Right now.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader stand up for some questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Having been involved myself in the appraisal business, it is a very detailed report that they do when somebody is selling a house. It can consist of almost 50 pages of information. And one of the things that they do is that when they have a property to appraise, they go out and they do what we call comps in the area. And those comps are houses that are similar in nature, and they look at them as houses that maybe have sold in the last 60 days. So my question to you, because I really don't understand the necessity of this bill, when there are already federal guidelines, we have removed the appraisers from doing anything with local agents. They have to deal with entities that do nothing but just deal with property evaluation and all. So I still don't understand the necessity for this, because, you know, if an appraiser does a bad appraisal, he gets written up for it, and he could also lose his contracts.
Let me explain a couple of things that are a little bit outside of what you just said. First off, you said that real estate agents don't have a process in the evaluation process. That is not always true. In some cases, when an appraisal is ordered, the real estate agent will prepare for the appraiser in advance of the appraiser coming by their specific CMA, comparable market analysis,
but that
to give
appraisal
I'm sorry,
that
sir.
they do.
Madam Speaker, please allow my subcommittee chairman to answer the question.
Go ahead, I apologize.
The real estate agent in some cases provides to the appraiser a comparable market analysis that the real estate agent puts together to provide to the appraiser based upon what the real estate agent thinks is a comparable price range in that neighborhood.
Okay, I understand that, but those appraisals are not official appraisals. And secondly, when you're the appraiser, you cannot accept that. You cannot have anything to do with that agent, because the agent is not the person that you're answering to. They have management groups that handle these appraisals. And the agents, yes, they do that, but that's only to give the people that are selling their house an idea. It is not an actual appraisal. And let me tell you, when these guys do the appraisals, it's very, very detailed.
And if I could respond to you, if you don't mind, sir? And part of the problem that we have been noticing, as you indicated, the appraisers are coming from a company that is picked at random to do the appraisal. What we are finding is that appraisers that are picked by this random company don't have any specific knowledge of the neighborhood that they're going to appraise.
I disagree with that, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that, because I do know that you do have a knowledge. And part of that is why these companies will pick certain appraisers. Look, I've done stuff in Baltimore City, I've done it in Baltimore County, and I've done it in Harford County. And let me tell you, you are very well aware of what these neighborhoods are. And not only that, even if you're not aware of it, guess what? You have the comps. And the comps are part of what details what kind of price that house is going to be appraised at.
Young man, I totally disagree with you, as is shown by the industry standards. These management companies are chosen at random, which has happened based upon the situation that took place in 2008, 2009, where mortgage companies could, in fact, choose their own appraisers. They can no longer do that. That's Dodd-Frank Act. But they can no longer do that. The appraiser must be picked from a random source of the company that has a contract with the bank. And therefore, the appraiser, in some cases, does not have any knowledge of that neighborhood.
You know, once again, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I know that that's not true. I've been involved in this industry, and I know how this industry works, and I know that these appraisers are on the hook if they're doing something wrong. And they take this job very seriously when they evaluate a piece of property. And you have to understand that these management companies, it's just not a nilly-willy kind of think, well, let me pick this person or that person. They pick people who have the expertise in certain areas. And I know that for a fact. So I don't see the necessity for this piece of legislation.
I do appreciate your conversation, but in terms of the necessity of this piece of legislation, there are hundreds of thousands of persons throughout the entire country and the state of Maryland that totally disagree with you, which is why this is here with us today.
Well, look, you can disagree, and I've seen that in the past,
interfere
that
here.
you can disagree.
Gentlemen, you two will be going back and forth saying the same thing. Okay, obviously you disagree. Vote against the amendment if you want to do
Well,
that.
but Madam
Okay.
Speaker, I think it's important that people understand that this
We're
is
here,
not...
we heard what you had said.
All
You
right.
said you disagree. You said it several times.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
for clarification, there's no amendment up here. Oh, there is an amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader please rise for a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. So I was in the mortgage business and still am for 20 plus years. And I actually was on your side on I've had my share of fights with appraisers. But in 2008, Dodd-Frank came down probably for good reasons, created this separation. And when we're talking about these appraisals, one of the questions I have is obviously we have Fannie Mae, we have Freddie Mac, we have VA, and we have FHA. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, obviously on the private sector, and on the government sector, we have VA and we have FHA. If we pass this bill, how is this going to affect, let's say, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, who are the largest insurers of every loan in the United States, really, outside of VA and FHA?
Zero.
So we pass this, and none of these 5 needs are going to go to Fannie or Freddie.
That is correct.
Are they going to go to VA?
This bill affects no government lending practice, nor does this bill affect any private lending practice whatsoever.
So it's just going to give us a report that really does nothing? That's kind of what I'm drilling at here.
No, let me be more specific and answer that question. The report will do something. The report will have additional training for appraisers in terms of how valuation, and let me give another example. Sometimes appraisers use a process, I'm not going to use the correct term here because I don't remember off the top of my head. Sometimes they use a process where they don't even go to the house let me finish my sentence.
The desk review.
Sometimes they use a process where they don't even go to the house to look at the property. And that condition of what is being studied in this task force is listed in the bill. There has been a lot of complaints about appraisers using that process, particularly when lenders are picked from a random company and they don't sometimes even go to the property. So this task force is listed in the bill in terms of how to evaluate that process that appraisers are currently using and whether that should still stay as a process that appraisers use. There have been some, Secretary Fudge's office have suggested that process should be eliminated or additional criteria put on it. Again, because of the 2008, was it Davis-Bacon, I think it was, because mortgage companies don't have the requirement to pick an appraiser that is a local appraiser.
Well, it's called a desk review, and it's a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. But the borrower, whether it be for a new home or for a refinance, can overrule that and just say, no, I want a real appraisal.
No.
And the reason that the desk reviews come out is because it makes the process quicker, and if the borrower can get approved. I mean, I understand. Look, nobody likes their evaluation, I'm telling you.
Let me correct something here now. You said the borrower could eliminate or remove that appraisal. That is not correct.
They can ask for a real appraisal with a home inspection.
Let me give you the terminology that is used. They can ask for a reevaluation of the appraisal. They can't eliminate it. They can't do away with it. They have to file a complaint. After the complaint is filed, then they can get another appraiser to come out. And what's happening is that sometimes persons, when they get an under-evaluated appraisal, do not want to file to have a second or third appraisal done because up against the time clock to go to closing, to go to settlement. If they sold the other home, they need to get into this one. So they choose not to file a complaint and come out of pocket with hundreds of thousands of dollars because they don't have time to file a complaint. The only time you can get your appraisal reevaluated, you can't just cancel it. You have to file a complaint. That's when you have another appraisal done.
Correct, and you provide some evidence. And this is the reason why we had the housing market crash in 2008, because appraisers were colluding and creating fake values. So there was a reason that Dodd-Frank came into existence in 2008. It was to cut back on people picking their own appraisers. So the federal government, in their wisdom, said, we can't do this anymore. We have to have a third party, an unbiased party. Whether or not their appraisers need to be trained again, that's another argument. And I understand the argument, I do. But I just don't think that this bill is it's gonna create just an additional problem or do nothing at all because you're not gonna break through with Fannie Mae.
Will
Thank you,
the
Madam.
floor leader yield to the chairman of the committee?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a task force. I would ask the members of the body not to redebate the Dodd-Frank legislation from a decade ago. I believe that because we're on second reader, it's appropriate, of course, to ask questions that are specific to the bill or the amendment, but I'm beginning to sense that this is turning into a third reader debate, which of course I would welcome upon third reader. So I would simply ask the members of this body to bear in mind, number one, this is a task force to evaluate what my committee believes is a very important problem within the state of Maryland. And of course, as always, we welcome conversations offline prior to a third reading debate, which is, Madam Speaker, what I'm a little worried we're drifting into at this moment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the floor leader.
Madam Speaker, really quick question.
Gentleman from St. Mary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A quick question to the floor leader or the committee chair, whoever wants to answer it.
Yes.
The scope of this bill, it deals with appraisals and the valuation of that appraisal. Is in the scope of the bill the property taxes from ESDAT as well?
One more time.
Are they going to, the task force that's looking at property appraisals and valuation equity, are they looking at property taxes assessed by ESDAT?
No. ESDAT will be part of the task force, okay? But answer your question is no. ESDAT will be part of the task force.
But shouldn't they also be looking at that as well? Because that also plays into your appraisal. A lot of appraisals start off with the ESDAT record. Most of the automatic evaluation software that I know, such as Zillow, Redfin, BlackRock, just about all of them work off a property tax evaluation and then add some type of math for recent sales on that. I know you know this, but shouldn't it include ESDAT as well?
ESDAT is in the bill. ESDAT will be part of the task force, yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing on the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1140, Natural Resources Voluntary Firewood Treatment Certification Program Establishment, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next.
House Bill 1300, Beach Erosion Control District, State and City-Owned Structures, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the members here, The House is still in session. Now we can have real third reading House debate. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 69. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 174, landlord and tenant repossession for failure to pay rent, registration, and license information.
Is on third reading and final passage.
It's on the bill.
Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 91 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 174, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 900, death certificates, fees, first responders killed in the line of duty.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 900, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 971, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Substance Abuse Treatment, Network Adequacy.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 971, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1433, State Highways, Designations, Piscataway Highway.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1433, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1450, Blueprint for Maryland's Future, Implementation Plans and Fund Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 117 votes in the affirmative, HB 1450, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1464, Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program for Physicians and Physician Assistants, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1464, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 70. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 874, Prince George's County Natural Resources, Archery Hunting Safety Zones.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 874, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 876, Maryland Forestry Education Fund Establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 876, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1043, Family Investment Program Eligibility, Work Experience, Community Service, and Reports, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1043, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1052, Public Safety, Natural Gas, and Liquefied Propane Piping Systems, Construction Requirements, Flynn and Laird Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the
Madam
clerk will
Speaker.
call the roll. Gentle Lady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members of the body. Nate Flynn was a husband, a father, a Howard County firefighter, a volunteer at my local Susquehanna Hose Company, a safety officer, and also my neighbor. His tragic death has left a very deep pain in my community, and I rise today for Nate and for Josh so that accidents like this will never take a life of a family again. Thank you.
Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1052, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 72. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 854, Alcoholic Beverages, Maryland Alcohol Manufacturing and Promotion.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 854, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1073, Health, Accessibility of Electronic Advanced Care Planning Documents.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1073, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1127, Public Health State Designated Exchange, Health Data Utility.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 92 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1127, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1169, Child Abuse and Neglect, Training of Healthcare Professionals.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1169, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1200, Environment Permit Applications, Environmental Justice Screening.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing Minority Whip.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a couple quick questions for the floor leader on the bill, if I could.
Vice Chair of the Committee.
Sure.
Good morning. Yeah, it's still morning. Just a couple questions. I mean, this bill was amended through the committee process, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And how about MBIA and the Maryland Realtors? Were there concerns addressed through the amendments that you all wound up taking on this bill?
Stand by. We did not hear directly from either of those groups after the amendments, but we reduced the bill's impacts, which should at least alleviate their concerns.
Okay, all right, well, I appreciate that. How about the impact on Kfos? Can you speak to that with regard to the final iteration of this bill?
This is not anticipated to affect Kfos.
All right, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your answers.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1200, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1219, pharmacists, status as healthcare providers, and study on reimbursement.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1219, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading House bills.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
a vote change if I may. House Bill 1043 to no.
Gentleman from Garrett.
Madam Speaker, vote change on House Bill 1043 to yes.
Gentleman from Washington, Allegheny.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1200 from green to red, please.
Any other vote changes? Calendar of third reading House bills number 73. The clerk will read first bill.
House Bill 641, income tax, theatrical production tax credit.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 641, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 685, education, regional resource centers, and libraries funding.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 685, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 752, public schools, school psychologist recruitment program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 752, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 767, emergency procurement contracts, term length and renewal.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 767, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 795, gross receipts tax on short-term lease or rental of heavy equipment alterations.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 795, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 863, Courts Expert Witnesses, Letter of Exception.
Is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 863, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 71. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1039, Property Tax, Community Solar Energy Generating Systems, Agrivoltaics.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1039, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1222, Public Health, Baltimore City Behavioral Health Crisis Incident Review Team.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1222, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1228, Natural Resources, Oysters, Spat Shells, and Substrate.
Is on third reading and final
Speaker.
passage. Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not going to belabor the point. You know, we were going to offer an amendment to this bill on Saturday. We did not do that. For the members of the body, if you read this bill, it looks innocuous, it looks positive, it looks like we're doing good things for the oysters. This bill has enormous gaps and problems. The idea, well, who could be against planting more spat on shell? That's a slogan that sounds really good. You need to know that 98% of the spat on shell dies. This bill sounds good, and it's a sales pitch, but there is a lot more to repletion and bay improvement efforts. I'll be voting no. I'd encourage you to vote no. I know there's a Senate bill that's coming over that you'll be hearing more about, and we'll be offering amendments to that bill. The industry is united against this bill. I want to make sure everybody understands that. And they're united against this bill in opposition because it does more of nothing, okay? It does not make improvements. It will not make improvements. It's important to note to the committee, or to the body, that we have our sanctuary system that was adopted where the government took control of a large portion of our bays bottoms and our oyster beds. And the latest survey will tell you, the latest survey on those sanctuaries will tell you over half of them are failures. Half of them are failures. And the highlight note on that is that in my backyard, there's a federal sanctuary, Harris Creek. Over $30 million was poured into Harris Creek. And the adjective used to describe the oysters that have been sampled in surveys, which are not being done anymore, that was turned into a federal sanctuary, the adjective used to describe those oysters is junk. That's what we're doing to our bay with some of these policies. So I'd urge you to vote no on this bill. The good news is we'll have some amendments on the Senate bill that everybody can vote for and make the bill a better product. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 90 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1228, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House of 1290, Education, Public School Construction, Funding, and Administration.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1290, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read
Madam
it.
Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Recognizing gentlelady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My button wasn't working on 1290. I'd like to be recorded in the green, please.
Any other vote changes? Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1298, Criminal Procedure, Hunting Offenses, Expungement.
Madam Speaker.
Hold on a second. On third reading and final passage. Recognizing the
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have some questions for the floor leader. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is unusual.
Good afternoon. I was just looking up and looking at the sponsor line for this bill. Could you tell me what this bill does?
As amended, this bill allows certain hunting offenses to be expunged.
Is that right?
That is correct. If this is indeed a minority party expungement bill, a criminal expungement bill, if you will.
Huh. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll be voting green on this, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll. Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1298, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1343, Major State Contractors, Donations to Advocacy Organizations, Disclosure.
Is on third reading
Madam
and
Speaker.
final passage. Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Very quickly, I just want to rise in opposition to this legislation. I understand transparency is critical, and transparency is a good thing. However, when we use transparency as a tool to single out certain interested stakeholders, to me, that is a dangerous precedent to be setting. I'll be voting against this, and I'd encourage the body also to vote against it. Transparency is a wonderful thing, like I said, but if it's not a universal application, then there's obviously it's being utilized in other ways than just transparency. Thank you.
Is there any further debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just very briefly, I like the idea that this bill would provide the public with greater transparency of who's paying to inform them or influence them. Unfortunately, though, in my opinion, it picks on one element of who might do that. And we tried in good faith to include public and private sector unions in this bill who do pay to influence the public, and unfortunately that attempt was rejected. If that had been included in this bill, I would vote for it, but unfortunately, I'm going to be voting a red today. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing gentlelady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd just like to remind the body that if you put a red vote up there, you are telling the public, you are telling the people of Maryland that we don't want to know how their tax dollars are being spent by large contractors. That's the huge difference here between what the gentleman from Anne Arundel and what this said and what this bill does. This bill is about saying we are giving money, taxpayer dollars, to huge companies that on huge contracts. We want to know how they're spending their dollars to build support for themselves, right? That is what this bill is about. If you do not think that taxpayers want to know how their money is being spent, then please vote red on this bill. But if you think that your constituents have the right to know how their money is being spent on contracts, then you should vote green on this bill.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Enron.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Respectfully, I'm very comfortable with my vote, but I thank you for the good counsel from the delegate from Baltimore City. In explaining my vote to anybody in my community, if I were to say I wanted to vote for it, but this legislature refused to allow the same level of transparency for unions, their response will be, of course. Obviously, I understand. I believe in transparency, but I don't like picking winners and losers. I like allowing transparency for all interested parties. So again, I'll be casting a red vote. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Minority Leader.
So we want to make sure that our constituents know that taxpayers whose money goes to evil, evil companies. What are companies? They are people. They employ people who work in your districts, who then pay taxes on every dollar that we pay them to build a road or a bridge or a solar generating station or a power plant or a hospital. All things that people need. The evil corporations do that, and they give most of the money.
Madam Speaker, point of order. Nobody ever said that contractors are evil, and they are creating important jobs. So I would ask the minority leader to please rephrase his comments.
I'm simply suggesting I think I'm allowed a little bit of creative license in my own argument. There's no offense intended. What I'm suggesting to you is that it is incongruous to suggest that giving money to businesses through state contracts that go through all the levels of procurement and all the levels of legislative oversight, but if they want to build something and they want to advocate for that, their contributions to an advocacy organization must be disclosed. Like my friend from Anne Arundel County, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea. But to suggest somehow that major public sector unions that get tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in payments, because that's where their wages come from and that's where their dues come from. And when they want to advocate and say, spend more money for public sector unions, raise our salaries, raise our benefits, reduce our retirement years, spend more money, hire more people who will join our union, they may be good and worthy endeavors as well. They very well may be. In many cases, they probably are. But they should also have to disclose. And that's all we're trying to say, is that if someone who goes out there and says, I'm a business, I employ Marylanders, I build things, I do things for the betterment of Maryland that have been approved by the appropriate authorities, I want to advocate for that through these 501c4 non-campaign entities, they have to disclose what they're doing, and others similarly situated have to disclose what they're doing. For that reason, Madam Speaker, I'll cast a red vote on the bill and hope that before it becomes final, we can address the dissimilarities in the process. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change the vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 92 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1343, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1397, Health Insurance, Prescription Insulin Drugs, Limits on Co-Payment and Co-Insurance Insulin Cost Reduction Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 128 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1397, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a vote change, House Bill 641 from green to red.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on House Bill 1039 from green to excused.
Okay. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My button didn't work. I want to be recorded in the red on House Bill 1039. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1298 from nay to yay, please. Thank you.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 795 from green to red.
Gentleman from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My brain did not work on 1397 from nay to yay, please.
Gentleman from Washington County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to change my vote on House Bill 863 to red and change my vote on HB 1298 to green. Thank you.
Young lady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My button didn't work on 1397. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Any other vote changes? Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 74. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 325, State Procurement Payment Practices.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will call the roll. Take the call. There will be 129 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 325, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 440, Electricity, Community Solar Energy Generating Systems, Net Energy Metering and Generating Capacity.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 90 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 440, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 472, Primary and Secondary Education, Title IX Notice. Here are Voices Act of 2022.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 472, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 497, Vehicle Excise Tax Exemption, Active Duty Military.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 497, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 521, Landlord and Tenant, Repossession for Failure to Pay Rent, Shielding of Court Records.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just have a couple questions for the floor leader of the bill.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Great.
Hey, a couple quick questions on the bill. So, can you just very, very briefly tell me what the bill does again?
The bill authorizes a tenant to petition the court to shield court records related to any action for repossession for a failure to pay rent if the failure to pay rent was due to a loss of income arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And
Do we have
only
any
that.
sense of how many folks this affected would be covered by this bill, or the records should be shielded by the bill? Ballparkish.
I honestly, I don't know exactly how many people it would be covered. It also, the bill after the amendments were adopted indicated that the court may, instead of shall, grant the petition to shield the record. So I don't have an exact number at this point. I think it's still a moving target to some extent.
Absolutely. I guess my question is, I'm just trying to understand the purpose or the need for the bill. So I'm one of the four members of this body who serve on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program committee, and we received $405 million in federal funds to support this effort, which can be used for up to 12 months in ERAP 1, 12 months of back rental assistance, plus 3 months ahead, and another 3 months available in ERAP 2, which is a total of 18 months of rental assistance. And as far as the Department of Housing knows, they can't identify a single person who's been denied this money. So I guess my question is, anyone, and ERAP allowed individuals to self-certify they had a loss of income due to COVID, and not even directly due to COVID, even if they claim that their expenses went up during COVID. they're still able to be awarded this up to 18 months of rental assistance. And so anyone in the state of Maryland who was able to show or even self-certify loss of income due to COVID can get up to 18 months in rental assistance. So I'm just trying to figure out of who's left. And we still have $200 million of that money left over still. So I'm just trying to find out who's this bill for.
I think that this, we certainly hope, was we hope comes to a conclusion here, that this is something that was kind of a once-in-a-century event, and that certainly if somebody lost their income, and many people did lose their income quite suddenly in some cases, related to the pandemic, and perhaps were not as well aware at the beginning of the pandemic about the potential for rental assistance, and in fact some of the rental assistance money wasn't quite there in the beginning. There could be reasons why we have this, and so this just allows those people to shield that from the record so that they could say, okay, you know, there was a pandemic. We're going to allow you to block this from your record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly, would understand the need for this bill if not for the eviction moratorium, for the 18 months available in rental assistance. I do appreciate it's a may, not a shall. I think that's a big differentiator. But at this point, and of course with the massive advertising campaign that went out statewide to educate folks and all the third-party and nonprofits that were engaged to push this money out statewide, and the fact that we still have hundreds of millions of dollars available in this fund, I'm not sure this is really necessary and who we'd be shielding their records from for somebody else. If you got evicted with all those things available, I would be shocked if there's not a larger issue at play. So for all those reasons, I'll be voting no on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will be voting obviously green because what happens is that when people apply for these programs, they take a long time to process. I know my office has received so many emails from people that we have to make calls and tell them, can you please expedite it? This person's going to be thrown out of their apartment. And what happens is the first time they're late, the landlord goes and files. And every time they file, this is on the person's record. And again, as the chairman, which I thank the Judiciary Committee for their amazing work, recognize that there are many people that fall in this category, and this is very specific for the time of COVID. So although there's money, it takes a long time for these applications to be processed. And the money's due, and the landlords come after the person. And my office has received many, many emails regarding this issue.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 92 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 521, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1163, primary and secondary education, virtual education requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 89 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1163, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 75. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 27, historic revitalization and enterprise zone tax credits, alterations, and eligibility.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 123 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 27, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 28, pharmacist nicotine replacement therapy medication.
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 28, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 104, Family Law, Child Custody and Visitation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 104, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 109, Maryland Department of Health, System for Newborn Screening Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 109, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 268, Property Tax, Exemptions for Business Personal Property Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 268, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1252, Physicians and Allied Health Professions, Reorganization and Revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1252, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to be recorded in the red on House Bill 1039.
Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll do the same on House Bill 1039 to red.
Gentleman from Talbot.
House Bill 1039 to read. Thank you.
Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 76. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 23, School Discipline Data Collection.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 23, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 968, Health Occupations, Dental Assistance, Certification and Regulation.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 968, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 969, State Board of Dental Examiner Training and Disciplinary Processes, Revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 969, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 973, Pharmacy Services, Administrative Organizations and Pharmacy Benefits Managers, Contracts.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 973, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1064, Real Property Actions for Possession, Pet Protections.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1064, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1469, Maggie McIntosh School Arts Fund, established.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1469, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. This is the time to clap. It's passed. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 77. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 15, Invasive and Native Plants Classification, Listing, and Use.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 15, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 244, Civil Actions, Damages, Use of Race, Ethnicity, and Gender Data.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 110 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 244, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 252, Income Tax, Maryland Earned Income Tax Credit Assistance Program for Low-Income Families.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 252, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 581, Public Safety, Fire Rescue, or Emergency Medical Services Entities, Peer Support Programs.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 581, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 78. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 739, Work Group to Study the Fiscal and Operational Viability of Public-Private Partnerships for Charles County Public Schools.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 739, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1055, Baltimore City, Maryland Transit Administration, Transit Services for Public School Students and Youth Workers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 128 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1055, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1398, property taxes, Baltimore City residential retention credit, termination of sunset.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1398, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1416, Charles County property tax credit for volunteer emergency responders.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1416, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1444, income tax credit, endowments of Maryland historically black colleges, extension.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1444, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1477, Washington County mobile home parks and mobile home tax revisions and repeal.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1477, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the committee on...
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you. I just noticed my button didn't work on House Bills 1469 and 244. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Vote change from green to red on HB 685 and 1039. Thank you.
Gentleman from
244 from red to green. Thank you.
Gentleman from Caroline.
I'll do the same. House Bill 244, red to green.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have two changes, 244 from red to green and 863 from green to red.
Gentleman from Washington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 252 from green to red.
Madam Speaker.
Queen Anne's. Gentlemen.
244 from red to green.
Red to
Thank you.
green. Okay. Queen Anne's. Okay. Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you. Vote change on 252 from red to green.
Wait a minute.
Two.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change from green to red on House Bill 244. I mean, red to green. Thank you. My mouth didn't work.
It's okay. Okay. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 18. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 230, speed monitoring systems, exclusion of vehicle rental companies, repeal and notification requirement. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. The amendment adds red light cameras as electric citations for all automated enforcement for rental car companies. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 656, Safe Access for All, Safe Roads Act of 2022. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 strikes the requirement for an SHA study on an intersection or road characteristics. Amendment number 2 reduces the appropriations for minor project programs, limits them to FY 2024, and increases them in proportion with federal funds that may be received. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you.
Minority leader.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had a question, and I think the subcommittee chair may have addressed. I just want to get some clarification. I thought you said in one of the amendments that it changed or reduced the appropriations that was in the bill. I'm just working off the original fiscal note that said that if the bill was passed as is, there would be $297 million in MDOT or Transportation Trust Fund monies that would have to be redirected. That it wouldn't decrease or increase the trust fund, but they'd have to be redirected within the program. Has that been changed by the amendments?
It absolutely has been changed. You're looking at the older version. In order to get where we are, that was amended.
Okay, and so
Very heavily. Very heavily.
The language that was in there that said that the bill may require some changes in programmatic costs today because it would require safety improvements to be made kind of in progress as construction was going on, and there was some language, I can read it said, additionally, the bill requires SHA for any new construction or improvement project that is projected to take more than 12 months to complete, more than 12 months to complete, so more long-term construction project. They would be required to implement all possible incremental near-term safety improvements immediately while maintaining each project's priority ranking. And what the DLS folks said was this requirement could increase project costs significantly, requiring additional funds to be redirected from other projects beginning as early as this fiscal year. Is that still, you think, probably an element of the bill, or have the amendments rectified that concern?
No, that is an element of the bill.
Okay.
Again, I can read the amendment again, but this is predicated on federal funds. So if we don't get federal funds, then we're not.
Okay, so is that the best way for me to understand it?
Yeah,
If the feds don't come in and pay for it, we're not going to do that piece I just talked about where we're doing sort of on-the-fly safety improvements
No, that
to the
piece
contract.
that piece will hold, but
That piece
again,
will hold.
based on federal funds.
Okay.
Okay.
But not the 297 million transfers. That'll only be if we backfill that from federal funds.
From federal funds, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. 153423/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment. So could the floor leader rise?
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Risen I have.
Thank you. So I gave you a couple of amendments, and sort of following up on the conversation you were having, the question is, has the federal money been appropriated yet?
No, it has not been appropriated yet.
Okay, and the bill, the way that it's drafted, seems to imply, although the conversation you were having just a minute ago, maybe I got this wrong, but the bill, if it passes, implies minimum funding levels for a series of priorities that the bill lays out. Are you saying that that's no longer part of the bill, that it's no longer requiring it, or what are we saying? In
Yeah, so to be clear, almost the entire part of this bill is dependent on federal funding. Federal funding, which is expected. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you show me in the bill where you're saying it's conditional on actually getting the money?
Yeah, let me, sure, on page 3, line 18, for fiscal year 2024, through the requirement paragraph, the subsection shall be increased by at least the percentage increased available for funds in the program contained in the Senate formula based on Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Well, let's say actually what the bill's saying is that the percentage increases in this funding. So these aren't percentage increases. The bill, the way you drafted it, is telling me that the governor shall include in the annual budget, for example, $7.4 million for ADA retrofit. It looks like that wording you're talking about moves forward. You're increasing by percentages in future years.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to turn this over because this was duly assigned to Appropriations as well as ENT. So I'm going to pass it to my friend from Chair Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. To my friend from the Eastern Shore, the bill came in with a multi-year. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman yield. Okay.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and again, my apologies. To my friend from the Eastern Shore, the bill came in with a multi-year appropriation for those 5 programs of pretty high mandated amounts. As amended, it takes a 1-year mandate, so just for fiscal year 24. It takes each of those 5 programs as they were budgeted in the CTP, the Consolidated Transportation Program, submitted by the administration, and pluses them up each by $1.5 million. So each of those 5 programs does have a $1.5 million mandated increase within it. Beyond that, there is the language that the subcommittee chair was just describing about any additional increase that comes in with federal funds should be a proportional increase above the mandated increase that we provided. But for each of those programs, the 5 programs, I believe, each is now being asked for a $1.5 million mandate above what MDOT had intended before.
So in this bill, you're actually fencing funding off for a series of these priorities. Of course, they're not all the priorities. We're just saying in this bill there are items like ADA retrofit that are priorities. And I guess the question is, why is it that the legislature wants to fence funding off in this situation?
I'll stick with the budget part and then cede back to my colleague on the policy piece. I just want to be clear, it's not a fence off, it's a mandated appropriation. Those are just not the same thing, but I'll let my colleague from Environment and Transportation explain.
Is that all right, Madam Speaker?
I didn't hear what he said. He said so fast.
He was passing back to me, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, this is part of a much larger policy piece as we move to Vision Zero to try to reduce or completely eliminate accidents in which all are killed, but particularly in this case when we're talking about pedestrians and cyclists, and a better idea of how we can evaluate, contextually speaking, what a highway or a road is going to do to eliminate or reduce those accidents. And that's really the big piece of this bill. As we move toward Vision Zero, which is a big policy piece, this pushes us in a way to figure out how we do that in a more intelligent and well thought out and more well comprehensive way than we've been doing for generations.
Well, the way you phrase that does beg the question. SHA, they are the experts, and they certainly have done a good job, in my opinion, of taking monies and applying them in a way that would be consistent with CTP priorities, but also safety. I mean, this is part of the world they live in. State Highway Administration, this would be if they were here standing here in front of this legislature, they're saying that safety is their number 1 priority. I think you're giving testimony that you have concerns about that.
I guess what my testimony what I would say to answer your question is that there are intersections, there are areas around the state in which the understanding and the reason for this bill is that SHA and MDOT is not moving quickly enough to address very problematic areas in which people and children are either getting hit or getting killed, in some cases multiple times. So we're trying to push policy so they pay more attention to those problematic areas and address them more quickly, and we address them in a more comprehensive way and address them in a more contextual way than they have been in the past. Often what happens is folks get into thinking in a specific way, and that's the way they do it generation after generation after generation. And what we're saying with this bill is that's no longer good enough. We need to come at this from a different way. We need to figure out how to do it better than we have before, because people are continuing to get killed and get hurt on the same intersections over and over and over again. I hope that helps.
It does. And so what I would say to you is that when we start mandating minimum spending levels, which this bill does, to your point, what happens if the sidewalk program, where we've created this $8.5 million minimum funding obligation, all of a sudden, from State Highway Administration's perspective, is that we've got to actually spend even more than $7.4 million in ADA retrofit. But to do that and be able to finance it, we can't spend $8.5 million on a sidewalk program. And so from a safety priority standpoint, these minimum mandates put the department in a difficulty. It puts them in a situation where they don't have the flexibility to move funds from point A to point B. And I do see this as sort of fencing off, but the limitations by creating these minimums is the possibility that of these 5 items, ADA retrofit, bicycle retrofit, safety and spot improvement, sidewalk program, traffic management, of those 5 that you're listing, literally what happens in one of those scenarios where you say, well, look, and State Highway says, well, we can't spend $8.5 million on a sidewalk program because we have some major problems with traffic management based on CTP and local priority, and they're stuck. We put this in legislation, they're stuck. The State Highway can't make these decisions because you're saying by definition that you have to spend at least this amount of money. And this sort of falls down, you know, a lot of the challenges we have in government when we take control away locally is because you can't react in a responsive way, a quick way from a budgeting standpoint, because we're making them spend the money whether they need it or not.
So what I would say to you, Delegate, is these funds are federal dollars. Think of this as like grant applications. This is pretty much free money from the federal government, and we need to take that money. I know for myself, I think if the government is offering free money and it's going to help protect the citizens of the state, you know, all of these, whether it's retrofits or bicycle retrofits, all of these categories, the need is much, much greater than what we have allocated here. This is just a first step to getting there. And again, it's predicated on federal dollars. So from our perspective, from the committee's perspective, this is free money. And it would be fiscally irresponsible for us not to try to obtain those dollars, bring them back to the state, and make our roads, particularly our intersections and our sidewalks, safer and more friendly.
So last question, and Madam Speaker, I'll move the amendment.
Yep.
I mean, we're all excited about the federal monies, and you know, obviously, we're going to want to try to get as many of those dollars as possible, especially if they're matches. Just basic question: do you not think that State Highway wants to do the same thing without the bill?
I think the State Highway has all best intentions to do everything they can, but they're probably to some degree underfunded and overwhelmed. This gives them the funding, and it also prescribes what we need to do. Again, the big piece of this is to understand that this is in really problematic areas, again, where people have been hurt or where people have been killed. And in some cases, in some of the urban areas in this state, particularly, you know, again, in some of the urban areas, there are multiple intersections where people have been killed or hurt over and over and over and over again. So we're just trying to learn from the first fatality or the first injury, not have to wait for 4 or 5 or 6 to do it. That's all.
So thank you, Floor Leader. Madam Speaker, on the amendment, the purpose of the amendment is to give our state highway administration the maximum degree of flexibility on how they spend the money. Of course, they're going to want to go after the federal dollars and grants and everything. And so, number one, the amendment asks 2 questions. One, is it better that the legislature, in a very rigid format and a mandate through minimum spending, are we better able to deal with the same concerns they're concerned about, the floor leader talked about, when we have these situations that come up when funding is required and the flexibility of the department to make these decisions, which may at some point come at the expense of other priorities. But if they're the major situations that the floor leader is talking about, will this bill make those sort of decisions easier to make? Will we be able to move money faster to do those priorities or not? And then the second question is, at the end of the day, we are taking monies that aren't in our hand, and we're putting this in legislation by way of mandate. Now, I'm going to defer and just simply say that I think that the bill reads that we're mandating that the spending. I think the testimony from the Appropriations Committee that may not be the case. But at the end of the day, if we take the amendment, we're absolutely saying if we didn't get the federal money, we're not obligating ourselves to spending it. And so for that, those 2 reasons, Madam Speaker, I move the amendment.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll speak to part of it, and then I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague for the other piece. Look, this is what we do. We create policy, and what we're saying with this bill is that we need to make some adjustments in our policy when it comes to pedestrian safety and when it comes to cycle safety. We're not doing what we need to do. What's happening around the state is not acceptable, especially in some of the urban areas where accidents, injuries, and fatalities continue to happen over and over again. We're policymakers. We make policy. This is policy. We want this policy to move forward. We're moved forward with Vision Zero since I think 2019 when we passed it in the House. So that's what it is. On the appropriation piece of it, I think that my colleague from Appropriations made it pretty clear. It's contingent on federal funding, but I will defer to him. Oh, thank you. And so with all that said, from my perspective, we oppose the amendment, and I would ask the body to reject the amendment.
Gentlemen, you're saying something else?
Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
How many more are in the lounge? Huh? A lot? Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
The amendment fails. Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, the last amendment, 283222/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Yes, Floor Leader, we'll maybe just 2 or 3 minutes on this one. So in the bill, we are talking about new construction projects, and that while these projects might have requirements to have incremental near-term safety improvements, that once those improvements are made, they still, in this bill, are asking that the project stay in its priority level. And so I'd ask you why you found that to be an important policy question to have answered here.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm happy to answer that. So there are occasions in which there's a priority intersection that's been identified, and the time period for making big changes to addressing that is pushed off. And what we don't want to have happen, if there are some small incremental opportunities to help public safety in the short term, it could be a stop sign or a crosswalk or anything that isn't super expensive, that doesn't take a lot of work. What we're saying is that if they do that, that doesn't mean that they get tossed. The rest of the project, the comprehensive contextual piece, the larger picture piece, doesn't get thrown to the end of the line and then 3 years later gets reviewed. We don't want to be in a situation where SHA or MDOT comes in and does a couple of small tweaks because they don't have the time or the bandwidth or the money at that particular time to really take a more comprehensive approach and then push the whole thing to the back burner and then make the process start all over again just because they did one small incremental piece. We appreciate the small incremental piece because of the timeline, but that doesn't mean they go all the way back to the end of the line.
Well, the small incremental piece might be the big incremental piece, which is the real safety problem, of which maybe 80 or 85% of the project cost is, and that the balance of it might be these incremental, less than important priorities, and therefore, as the department makes these decisions on how and where to spend money, they may say, okay, in a 12-month or greater project, in the next 3 months, we have to have ADA compliance. We have to have bicycle paths. But you know what? We don't have to do the sidewalk part as quickly. And at the same time, and to the point on your prior testimony, there may be other priorities that come up, urgent priorities that the department, and because this happens through the CTP process, other counties throughout the state might say, well, wait a minute, this is also the kind of project that we need priority on. This bill, without the amendment, again, is taking away local, well, not local control, it's taking away control of the State Highway Administration to make determinations. You're implying that the state actually makes bad decisions from a standpoint of safety. I would simply argue that that's not the mission of the State Highway Administration. It's to do the exact opposite. I just want to reinforce that. But if you don't take this amendment, then how is the state able to make local decisions on a timely basis, especially when it comes to large sums of money on important projects throughout the state? You're taking that away from the State Highway Administration.
Right. So, Delegate, I would say to you that I don't disagree with you. I think SHA and MDOT, they're all trying to do the right thing, right? They're working to do the right thing. The fact of the matter is that's not always clear. And as policymakers, we are trying to change policy. We're trying to change the way they interpret and their timelines. So in this particular case, I don't think that just because they make a small tweak to a very problematic area that has cost lives, that clears them of doing of reworking the entire intersection or the entire area if necessary. And I just am very concerned with then pulling them out of the queue, and then so they made one small tweak, we pull them out of the queue, and then someone gets hurt or gets killed, and then now all of a sudden it's pushed back a year or two before they look at it again and someone else can get hurt or killed. So it's been identified for a specific reason, because someone got hurt or killed. So let's get whatever we have to do to make that intersection safer. Let's get that done as quickly as possible. And if we can't get every single piece of it, that's fine. Get the pieces that we can, but it should not, and I must say to the body again, that does not mean that the project should be thrown way back in the queue and then have the rest of it not looked at. So for those reasons, I would ask the body reject this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. Madam Speaker, on the amendment, I bring it with the same rationale, which is while the intentions are good, I think the committee's trying to say as a legislature that we want to do safety first. Let me just say, in my 8 years of serving in the legislature, I've attended in 4 counties almost every CTP presentation. I know they do this throughout the state for all the counties, and I don't think there's any question in my mind what's first in mind when it comes to state highway and projects and priorities, and that is to make sure that we have safe roads, safe streets, safe sidewalks, safe pedestrian traffic, the whole thing. And so, Madam Speaker, without the amendment, as with the other amendment, we are taking away the local, the business, the state flexibility to actually make those decisions day by day on the fly, especially when you consider the fact that we might be talking about not what the floor leader was saying, which is we were making incremental changes, maybe 5 or 10% of a project, and maybe it gets some of the safety issues resolved, and then all of a sudden the project goes on the back burner. What I'm saying is that there might be a project that's 12 months or greater where they do 80% of that project, the most important 80% of that project, and all of a sudden a priority shows up that we have to respond to, and because of this legislation, that's the scenario where I'm concerned about, will the state be able to go to that next project, spend the money that's required to get that project in a position where the locals and the state highways met that mandate, that responsibility, that obligation that we know, and I believe that state highways' first priority is, which is to make our people safe. So with those reasons, Madam Speaker, I'd move the amendment and give the control back to State Highway to make these decisions. Thank you.
Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To a certain extent, this body already has a certain element of control over where this money is going to be spent anyhow. Every fall, every one of us meet. As long as you go to these meetings, you meet with your local governing body. And that's where MDOT and State Highway, they ask the locals, what are your priorities? And I can tell you, in my district, majority of the projects that they're requesting, their number one priority is safety. And some may be sidewalks, some may be infrastructure that are located in towns, but most of the time, these are intersections, where there are a lot of accidents. People are dying. We have roads that one-way roads where people are passing each other. People are dying. So so safety is a number one priority for a lot of us, at both the state and the local level. We passed a bill a couple years ago when we changed the scoring system and how these projects are going to be scored by MDOT. And safety was a major component of that. We weighted it very heavily. We passed that bill out of this chamber. So it was a priority for us at that point. So I'm going to stand here and make the argument that we've created a system in place where at some point we have to trust MDOT. We've already given them clear direction where our priorities are, and we just have to let them do their work at this point. And for us to continue with these mandates that ties their hands, we're sending a strong message to them again that, and it may not be the message that the intent, I don't want to impugn anyone's intentions here, and that's not what I'm saying, but the message that we are sending to them is that we still don't trust where their priorities lie, and they're not necessarily in line with where our priorities are. And the point that I want to make is that based on the legislation that we passed over the last 6 or 8 years, we made it very clear where our priorities stand. And I think that MDOT's done a great job with the plans that they've established and how they are actually spending our money and what's in the Transportation Trust Fund. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate? On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their
Madam
vote?
Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I wanted to explain my vote.
Explain your vote. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have stood on street corners with the State Highway Administration after someone has been killed. They have looked at that intersection and agreed that it is not safe. They have committed to make changes, and then while we waited year after year for the money for those changes, another person was killed. I cannot keep waiting for them to get around to fixing their system while my constituents are killed. I vote no on this amendment, and I look forward to voting yes on the bill.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1143, Allegheny County and Garrett County all-terrain vehicles and snowmobiles, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1262, Talbot County Speed Monitoring Systems, intersection of Maryland Route 333, Oxford Road, and Bonfield Avenue. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 requires revenue collected to be used for roadway safety improvements at the site. Amendment number 2 requires specific notice and signage. And amendment number 3 requires a device that's displayed in real time, posting the vehicle speed. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1362, Baltimore City use of highway user revenues for traffic functions and enforcement, modification, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 14. Excuse me? One more bill. I'm trying to rush it.
House Bill 1391, Clean Cars Act of 2022, favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Thank you. Nope. Madam Speaker, move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 establishes the grant program for medium and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicles and heavy equipment. Amendment number 2 includes tax credits for autocycles. Amendment number 3 lowers the MSRP cap to $50,000. And amendment number 4 includes zero-emission heavy equipment and strikes hybrid vehicles from the Clean Cars program. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick.
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I see everyone's starving. So for the floor leader, just a quick, very brief question before everyone thinks bad thoughts about me. Okay. This quickly just extends a tax credit we offer to Marylanders who buy new cars I have one specific question: is why are we reducing the eligible vehicle price from $63,000 to $55,000?
So yeah, the program has expired, so it's not just extending, it's renewing, but essentially the same thing. And that is because the cost of some of these cars are starting to come down a little bit, and we're trying to make sure that we help those people that need help the most in helping to purchase these vehicles. So as the costs come down, we're just trying to stay with the costs and help those people that need help the most. We're not really, from a policy perspective, we don't really want to incentivize the very, very costly vehicles.
So all vehicle prices have increased dramatically over the last year. New, used, every single vehicle has gone through the roof, including electric cars. So my question is, are we giving more of a tax break, or are we giving less of a tax break with this extension?
So to your point, some vehicles have gone up, a lot of vehicles have gone up. The average cost of a vehicle now in the state of Maryland is over $42,000, and some of them have come down a little bit, so it all depends. But to your specific question, yeah, ask it again.
So the purpose of this program, which we're renewing,
right,
is to give a tax credit to people that buy new electric vehicles.
Correct.
Right. We're extending it 5 years, renewing it 5 years, what have you. But you
4 years.
changed the eligible vehicle price from up to $63,000 to now it only goes to $55,000. And so my question is, are we offering less of a tax credit to Marylanders by reducing the price from $63,000 to $55,000?
No, I don't think we're offering less. We're just offering, we're limiting the amount of people that are eligible and bringing down the overall price for the people that are eligible for it. So instead of it being 62 or 72,000 years ago, there was no MSRP cap on it. So we're just trying to limit it to $50,000 and less.
And then finally, I promise, why would we do that when vehicle prices have gone up?
I will tell you that $50,000 is still a significant sum of money. And there are electric cars that are available for less than that. There's a lot of electric cars and regular cars that are available for much more than that. We have limited funds. We're part of the zero emission vehicle clean cars mandate that we have with California. We're trying to get the 300,000 cars sold, EVs registered in the state of Maryland by 2025, and this helps to promote that goal as best as possible. We could put out $100 million and probably, still need more money. So this is an opportunity to just try to help those folks that need that help the most. I hope that helps answer your question.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To your left. Hey, just a quick question for the floor leader.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for explaining this, and I agree with the good delegate. Kind of confused on why it's going down. What is the intent, and you got to it, I think, in your last statement, what is the intent of this incentive? Is it to get more vehicles on the road, or only help, I guess, lower amount of vehicle price people to drive electric vehicles?
So the intent of this is to help in compliance with the zero emission vehicle mandate that we've signed with California years ago, and that is to get more and more zero emission vehicles on the roads in the state. That's what this does. It just helps to promote people to purchase more electric vehicles and get more EVs on the road.
Okay, so maybe I don't understand it correctly, but it's not graduated, right? You only get a $3,000 tax credit if it was a $25,000 EV or a $125,000 EV. You only get a $3,000 tax credit. So how does a Tesla get another, like buying a Tesla, how is that different than buying a Prius when you're trying to get one more car in there? Because you're only going to give them $3,000. $3,000 for a Tesla or $3,000 for a Prius.
Right, so this doesn't apply to the Prius because the Prius isn't all electric. There's not an all electric Prius. As far as Tesla's concerned, this only applies to one Tesla model. The rest of the models are above the MSRP cap, so it wouldn't apply to the other models.
Okay, well, play along with me. Whatever vehicle that is less than $50,000, how does that get us to one more vehicle? If it's more or less than that, it's still one more vehicle on the road, right?
It is. We're trying to get as many of these vehicles on the road as possible, and I don't know what to tell you. The more we can do, the better off it is for the state, the better off it is for our breathing air, the better off it is for carbon emissions, the better off it is for climate change.
I will say this 1,000 times. I'm the only person on the floor in the Republican Party who drives a Tesla, so I love the fact that we do this. And I just wish it was covering more vehicles. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. This is just a question of policy. Thank you.
Simple
Gentleman
question.
from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's just a simple question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So this is a
Go ahead with your simple question. Go ahead with your simple question.
Okay then. So this is a $3,000 tax credit for EVs. And is this tax credit in any way, shape, or form limited by the amount of your income?
No.
So you can be a millionaire and still get the $3,000 tax credit as long as you buy an EV.
Correct.
Interesting.
Under the MSRP cap. And it also, just to kind of expand a little bit, because you didn't, it also, we're expanding the program to go with like trucks, like big trucks, and trying to kind of help in that sector a
So
little
this
bit.
is like a tax credit for millionaires then, basically.
No, that's not it. No.
But it could be. It could be.
Well, there's a difference between what you said, which is this is a tax credit for millionaires, and could be. Those are two completely different things, delegate. So
you have limits in the bill, but you don't have limits in the bill as it relates to people's income.
correct.
All right, got it.
So-
Thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 14. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 164, Institutions of Higher Education, Pregnant Students, Policy. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the bill to require institutions of higher education to have a policy for pregnant and parenting students. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1018, Public Safety and Behavioral Health Improvement Act. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Motion must be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 strikes provisions related to peer support criteria that were duplicative. Amendment 3 removes provisions requiring a statewide outcome measurement system and changes it to an internal agency measurement system in consultation with the Behavioral Health Administration. Amendment 4 adds provisions to enhance 911 operator training to include behavioral health issues and crisis response services. And Amendment 5 removes requirements for judicial compliance rates, as judges have discretion in sentencing, and criminal justice disparity data is already required by the bill. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1249, Libraries, Capital Projects, State Share Adjustments. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much consider reading the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 creates sunset after 3 years. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the gentleman from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise for a question? Could you repeat what that amendment does?
It creates a sunset after 3 years.
You're telling me this General Assembly has gotten so liberal, we're now creating natural events. We're creating sunsets?
Is that a question, Madam Speaker? Or is that so?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 130 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 80. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 222, vehicle laws, driving in right-hand lanes, interstate highways in rural areas.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 222, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 551, real property residential leases, notification of rent increases.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 551, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 580, Maryland Transit Administration Police Collective Bargaining, Supervisors and Sergeants.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 197 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 580, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 586, Queen Anne's County, Public Safety, Buildings Used for Agritourism.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 586, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 603, Harford County Board of Education, appointment of members, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognize the gentlelady from Harford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first, I'd like to thank the good delegate representing Harford and Cecil County for his work on this bill. While we do agree that there needs to be greater accountability in our school system, this bill's puzzling to me. And it's puzzling to me because the way this bill was initially filed is very different than what's in the Senate. We've received input and public hearings from parents, teachers, existing board members, and some that have been appointed by this governor. The consensus is there's no consensus. There's no consensus on this bill at all. Some want the status quo. Others want a fully elected school board. This bill is neither. Therefore, I'm putting up a red vote on this bill.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 603, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 927, Housing and Community Development, Affordable Housing, Listing and Disposal of Excess Real Property.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 927, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1389, Maryland Department of Health, Prevent Workplace Violence in Healthcare Settings Public Awareness Campaign Work Group.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote?
I'm sorry, I'm waiting for the next one.
Yeah. Because we haven't called the vote, called the tally yet. clerk will take the call. There be 131 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 1389, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Recognize the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry I rose a little early there, but vote change for HB 551 to red. Thank you.
Special order calendar number 54. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 689, Carroll County Board of Education, Member Compensation and Student Representative. Favorable report is amended. Adopted.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My questions have been answered.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone, clerk will take the call. There be 129 members present and House is still in session. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 81. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 12, Worcester County Public Safety, Buildings Used for Agritourism.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 12, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 141, Equity in Transportation Sector Guidelines and Analysis.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 141, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 186, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Centenarians.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As somebody will probably be eligible for this tax break in the next year or two, I enthusiastically support it, so thank you.
Is any other further debate or comments? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 186, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1202, Local Government Cybersecurity Coordination and Operations, Local Cybersecurity Support Act 2022.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the gentleman from Howe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I realize that what I should have said on Saturday is I have a technical amendment, but I will not get into it past then. I do want to bring up a few things that are not very technical on this amendment or this bill and why I will be voting against it. So there's a few things in this bill. One of the first things it starts with is a support to local governments in developing a vulnerability assessment and cyber assessment through the Maryland National Guard's Innovative Readiness Training Program. So I bring that up in the sense that the Maryland National Guard doesn't have an innovative readiness training program. The Department of Defense has an IRT program. Literally, in this bill, we will be in conflict with what federal law says. The program that we fall under is by authority of the Department of Defense and federal law that we do any of this work. So it just befuddles me the fact that there was such a lack of coordination throughout this bill that the Maryland National Guard was not even consulted in the sense that they could get this language correct. I would also say that this is not the only way the Maryland National Guard could actually do good work for the rest of the government. There are different titles and authorities, Title 32 and State Active Duty, in which they could do this. Next, we talk about, as necessary, in coordination with the National Guard, local emergency managers, and other state and local entities, conduct regional cybersecurity preparedness exercises. So during COVID-19 support, the Maryland National Guard, in 2020, we had more members of the Maryland National Guard on duty than any other state in the nation. We did great work. I personally spent about 120 days on duty running the cybersecurity for the entire Maryland National Guard, which was great. We actually had an attack on a ransomware attack on St. Mary's hospital system, where the National Guard deployed with the state Department of IT to do work there. It actually exposed personal data through this process. And this is my point, though. You have a requirement in this law with the wrong authorities and no funding. So now, instead of rewarding the great work that the Maryland National Guard did over the last few years for COVID, you are putting an unfunded mandate on your National Guard troops through passing this bill. Next, each local government shall report a cybersecurity incident, including an attack on a state system being used by a local government. So this is, if anyone knows anything about cybersecurity, if you are being targeted by an advanced persistent threat nation state, you are already hacked. We're going to put a bill in place in which no one can actually comply to. And I say that in the sense of, you only know when you're hacked when you know you're hacked. Most people are already there, right? If Russia or China or Iran or North Korea wants to be in your networks, you're already in your networks. So you're setting in law something that a state and local government cannot and will already be in non-compliance with. Next, the CISO, in coordination with the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, shall report the status of vulnerability assessments for all units of state government. Okay, this is great. So if I'm a hacker, and now you have a list of the vulnerability assessments that are out for public consumption. It might not say the actual vulnerabilities, but there's a top 10 vulnerabilities, there's a top 100 vulnerabilities, and now I know which state and department is the worst off on their assessments. So you're literally publicizing and making it in law that you have to publicize how we are vulnerable in the state of Maryland, which I don't think that's good. So again, on Saturday I stood up, tried to make a technical amendment to make this a little bit better, but now hopefully you can see why this law is not going to be good for cybersecurity. It's only going to create additional bureaucracy and not make us more safe. What it is missing, in my opinion, and we've talked about it on the floor here, is any type of Maryland first policy. We have great educational institutions. We have great businesses, small and large. We've missed the opportunity to say, please use Maryland cybersecurity first in this type of bill. Madam Speaker, thank you for your time. I will be voting red.
Sponsor of bill, floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just want to reiterate the fact that this was legislation that was authored as well as highly involved with experts in the field, private, public, as well as folks from all walks of life that have already done business with the state, that have already done business in the private sector related to cybersecurity. Much of what the speaker was mentioning is authorizing language. It's not requiring language, referencing the office from the DoD and letting us know that the state has options associated with outside sources for expertise when conducting exercises to making sure that from year to year we are prepared for a cyber threat. Also related to the Public Information Act, allows for the shielding of sensitive information related to cybersecurity. These issues were brought up during the discussion of the original bill as was drafted and were addressed in the bill through language that we've included through the amendments. I encourage the body to stick with the experts from the interim commission and the committee, and thank you for your green vote.
Gentleman from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really appreciate the words from the great delegate. And this is the worst part, and this is politics over the people of for cybersecurity, is that there are many people on the Cybersecurity Council that they list. Each of the secretary of the departments are either part of this council, and I know they gave great inputs. But the ironic thing is the Maryland National Guard, actually, it says the Maryland National Guard or designee can be part of this committee, and I know the committee actually had a lot of great input. Yeah, 3 years ago, that was me, Colonel Novotny. I was the representative before joining this body. I was literally the representative before a person who took over after me. But it's maddening to me that it's more politics than, in my opinion, than cybersecurity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, clerk will take the call. There being 107 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1202, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Recognizing the chairman of the Environment and Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like permission to take the Environment and Transportation Committee off the floor to the old House chamber.
Permission granted. Environment and Transportation to the old House chambers.
I think I know. We'll find out.
1314.
If there, okay, we have 20 minutes. I want to get stuff done so you can get on out of here and get some eat before we had to come back. And so, you're going to cooperate and sit in your seats? Okay. From where we left off, clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1314, Vehicle Laws Pilot Program to Evaluate Alternative Registration Plates and Cards.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1314, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1370, Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Fund, Annual Funding and Extension.
Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1370, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1381, Environment Firefighting Training Oriented Strand Board Prohibition.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker?
Gentlelady from Hartford.
Is this a good time for a vote change, or you'll be taking up?
Let me take the call. Okay. Clerk will take the call. There being 128 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1381, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on HB 141 from yea to nay.
Calendar of third reading House Bills, number 82. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 6, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Dental Coverage for Adults.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 114 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 6, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 76, Community Solar Energy Generating Systems, Exemption from Property Taxes.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 93 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 76, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 146, Education, Reportable Offenses and Student Discipline, Children with Disabilities and Reporting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 111 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 146, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from St. Mary's.
Madam Speaker, my finger didn't work apparently on HB 6. I'd like to be recorded in the red.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My button didn't work on House Bill 146. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 147, Maryland Farms and Families Fund, Maryland Food and Agricultural Resiliency Mechanism Grant Program, and Maryland Farm to School Meal grant pilot program alterations and establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 147, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The gentleman from Baltimore County.
Madam Speaker, on HB 146, my button didn't work. Record me in the green, please.
Okay. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 193, motor vehicle registration, exceptions for electric golf carts, Hooper's Island and Taylor's Island.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 193, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1250, task force to study solar energy incentives.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1250, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1295, multifamily dwelling smoking policies.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 115 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1295, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A vote change on HB 146 from red to green.
Gentleman from Washington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on 146 from green to red and 147 from green to red.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
Madam Speaker, my button didn't work on 1295. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1250 from green to red.
Any other vote changes? Okay. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 79. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 417, employees retirement and pension systems, reemployment earnings limitation, COVID-19 exemption.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 417, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 528, Town of Williamsport, Washington County Urban Renewal Authority for blight clearance.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 528, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 543, Town of Hancock, Washington County Urban Renewal Authority for blight clearance.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 543, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 657, Public Schools Standardized Behavioral Health Questionnaire for Students, Development and Implementation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? The gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise, please? Good afternoon.
Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon.
I'm reading the bill, the reprint of the bill, and on page 3, it talks about a commission. The consortium shall develop guidelines for developing a standardized questionnaire to identify students with behavioral health issues needs. The guidelines shall be developed by the following stakeholders. I don't see parents on that list. Is there a reason you didn't put a representative from a parent group on there, PTA, general parent of any kind?
The committee discussed that they're not represented because they're not experts in behavioral health, just a general parent representative.
But they are experts on children, I would say. And then my other question would be on page 3 again, between lines 4 and 5, the questionnaire with permission of a student or a student's parent shall be shared with the mental health staff, blah, blah, blah. So are you bypassing a parent by putting the word "or" in there? A student or a student's parent. I'm a little concerned we've cut parents out of the questionnaire development, and now we're providing an opportunity to skip parents on this sharing as well.
That language was chosen so that we are consistent with federal law.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be voting against this bill. It's one more opportunity to include parents. There is one thing, as a former educator, as a parent and a grandparent, and just a person with common sense, one thing that is essential for student success, and it is parents' involvement. And this bill strikes at that, and so I am voting against this bill.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader please rise for a couple questions? Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm reading this bill, so parents aren't involved in the creation of this survey, but we're giving the survey to parents? If I read this correctly, I believe it's on the fiscal note at the bottom of the page. It says, the bill also requires each local school district to give standardized screening to the parents or guardian of each student. We're giving the screening to the parents?
Yes, we are.
So my first question is, who's going to, like in my county, there's about 17,000 parents. Who's going to process all this surveying?
The behavioral health specialists,
Are they already on staff?
they're already on staff, and they were created by the blueprint.
So are you concerned at all, or I guess, would there be any concern that this could possibly being misused and the parents are opening up themselves to possible liability by filling out this survey with mental health?
I
can see a
Would
scenario
the
where...
chairwoman yield to the sponsor of the bill?
Sure.
Yes, I'm fine. I did not understand that question, but I'm happy to yield.
I'll explain it better.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure I understood that question either. I just wanted to thank you for your question. I think there has been some misunderstanding about this bill. It's actually much simpler than it's being made out to be here on the floor and in conversations before the subcommittee and committee. In fact, the consortium is already in place that is developing a wide range of screening and opportunities for kids to find the services and the resources they need throughout the state. That was put in place by the blueprint that we've already passed. This commission, and I guess this speaks to the delegate from Baltimore and Harford County's question, this commission, it does not have a parent on it because it is not the main consortium commission. This is a tiny little work group to help them address certain very specific issues that deal with health and behavioral health issues. They're at the place for parents throughout this process. It's just not on this advisory group. And to answer your question, sir, thank you, if I remember it correctly, every year, all 24 of our counties actually give out this questionnaire anyway, so parents are doing that now. Every single county has its own behavioral health questionnaire. The reason to put this bill is so that we're asking the same questions, or the same topics at least, across all of our 24 districts. So parents do not have to fill this out if they do not want to, and but generally they do because it gives us great information about their children's needs. But if they don't want it shared or they don't want to fill it out, they can certainly opt out of that.
Well, let me give you my question. I posed to the floor leader on this, because let me just tell you my concern. I was trying to think about eloquent way of saying this, but is there any possibility parents fill this out for mental health and they're opening them up themselves for possibly being red flagged later on?
I don't exactly understand what sort of red flagging that
Parent
you
fills
are
it out
after.
with the best intentions, saying, you know what, my child has a slight mental problem. Maybe they're depressed or something like that. And next thing you know, it's escalated. The parents have guns in the home, and the cops are rolling in their door, knocking on their door, asking them to remove their firearms.
Well, I'm
that
not
are
a
legally
member
purchased.
of judiciary, sir, but I believe, and I'm sure our chair actually used to be, but I believe that the red flag laws are only if there's an actual threat that would come into play. I certainly have had my own children have had issues, and I have happily filled out those questionnaires so that they would be able to receive the resources and the attention that they need in the public school system. So I think most parents are going to agree that it's actually going to help their children and their schools provide services.
Well, thank you. I won't
Thank
belabor
you.
the point. Madam Speaker, I'm going to vote red on this bill, off the simple fact that we know what some of the problems are in our schools. It's children that are disruptive. And to me, this seems like a little bit of a witch hunt if we're going to start questioning not only the students but the parents of literally thousands of parents. That doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 657, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next.
House Bill 878, Howard County Department of Housing and Community Development Housing Opportunities Trust Fund.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? And if not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 878, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1076, Vehicle Laws, Electronic or Digital 24-Hour Registration.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1076, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1081, Baltimore City Vehicle Laws, Towing.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1081, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar third reading, House
Madam
Bill number
Speaker.
90.
Thank you. Vote change on House Bill 147 from nay to yay. Thank you.
Clerk will read the
Speaker.
bill.
House Bill 433, Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, Student Members, and Task Force to Study Compensation and Student Members.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 433, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Vote change.
Gentleman from St. Mary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A vote change on House Bill 146 to red.
Gentleman from Washington County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on House Bill 1295 from green to red and 433 from green to red. Thank you.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 657 from green to red and 146 from red to green.
Gentleman from Frederick.
1295 to red, please. Thank you.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Madam Speaker, 1295 to red, please.
No other vote.
Madam Speaker, I believe it,
Gentleman from Frederick.
House Bill 433 to red. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 927 to red. Thank you.
Gentleman from Talbot.
HB 1295 to red.
Is there any other vote changes? Okay. Message from the Senate, consent calendar number 31. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the first bill on committee assignment.
Senate Bill 6, Senator Walt Stryker, Environment and Transportation.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of Senate Bill 6 be considered the reading of all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objections, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committees. That ends the work at the desk for right now. Any committee announcements? Any committee announcements? Okay. Any caucus announcements? Gentlemen, you rise for what purpose?
Change of vote, please. 1295 to red, please.
Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will, yes. Clerk will take the call. There are 129 members present. The House is still in session, recognizing the majority whip.
If you care to leave your electronic devices, you can. The chambers will be locked. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Monday, March 21st at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Legislative Day, March 15th.
4 p.m. sharp.